Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome, everybody, to the 28th episode of the Blacks in Technology audio podcast. I am your host for this evening, your tech host for this evening, Greg Greenlee, owner and founder of the Blacks in Technology website. You can check us out at www.blacksintechnology.net. You can also follow us on Twitter, Black in Technology, BLKINTECHNOLOGY. We also have a LinkedIn group as well if you want to go there and join that. And I think that's all of our handles. Tonight we have back on our show Kellep Charles. Kellep is a information security analyst out of Washington, D.C., and he was on our show it was some months ago he was on our show, and like talking security with Kellep, and so brought him back to talk some more security. Just a little background on Kellep. He has completed his doctorate in information assurance at Capital College. He has his Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from North Carolina A&T. Also, he holds his Master of Science in Telecommunication Management from the University of Maryland. So I want to welcome Kellep back to the show. Thanks again, Kellep, for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me. I was checking out the website. I like the improvements in the website from the last time when I was on the air.
Yeah. We went through a total site redesign with the help of a friend, or actually a member. She is a friend, but she's a member also of the site, website designer out of Dallas, Texas, LaDelia, and she helped us out with the website, with the template for the website design, man. It turned out real nice, so I want to give a shout out to her. So makes everything a lot more, accessible and easier to navigate. So yeah, we've actually
more modern look.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm definitely happy about it. Definitely. So just to give some people some background, I interviewed you months ago on the show, and we correspond through Twitter, through Google, things like that. But what's funny is that I just attended ShmooCon, which is a security conference in Washington, D.C. So I'm sitting down with Kevin Figueroa, Mark Figueroa. These two brothers are out of New York, and I met them at DerbyCon, which was in Louisville. First time I actually met Kevin. It was Kevin and Marcos. But I met Kevin at DerbyCon. I didn't meet his brother then. So I didn't even know they were actually going to be at ShmooCon. So I got at ShmooCon, flew in. We actually drove in. Me and a friend of mine drove in, and there's Kevin. So Kevin's gives me a pound and everything. He said, "You ever met my brother?" And I'm like, "No." So we go over there, over to the restaurant, and I meet his brother, and we're sitting there, and this guy approaches and he sits down, and Kevin starts talking, and he's like, "Oh man, it's nice to finally meet you, KC," and he kept saying KC, and I'm just like, KC? So I'm like, okay. Let me ask him who I think I might know who this is. So I say, "Hey, what's your name?" And Kellep is like, KC, and I'm like, "What's your entire name?" And he's like, Kellep, and I'm like, "Oh man, I did not know at all that you were going to be there." And then just that that whole meeting, man, it was just so much of a coincidence, man.
It was.
We actually got to meet at ShmooCon.
Yeah. It was like, it just shows you how small the technology in the InfoSec world is. It's like at any given moment, somebody that you're reading a tweet or you're reading an article or you're speaking to somebody on Twitter, and at the next event, you're standing right next to that person, face to face.
Yeah. So that was I thought that was pretty cool. So speaking of security / hacker cons, why do you think the security cons are important?
Well, I mean, the security cons give you an insight to what's coming down. Many times, in the hacker cons, many times, we'll read something at CNN or on Facebook, and they talk about, MSNBC, and they talk about a particular hack that just happened. The thing about the hacker cons is that you have these guys demoing, exploits, vulnerabilities, and ideas that they're working with other hackers on. And you get to see an insight, so it gives you the opportunity not to only research that particular technology, but to go back to your place of business and the other white hat community and give a little awareness like, hey, this is what I saw at this HackerCon pertaining to, near-field communication or with Wi-Fi or, this particular server. We need to take a look to see to make sure that, our defenses are up to par, because by the time they're showing you these things at the HackerCon, they're about maybe 15 days away from being able to implement it in the wild and causing havoc, So, and the networking, you get to actually speak to them one-on-one, and they, tell you some intimate things, which is good, for knowledge, and it's also good for, defensive purposes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I tell you what I do like, and it's the level of conversation when you get to these hacker cons. Something that I think is needed more often in the black tech community is the depth, the technology depth that when you go to these hacker conferences, and these guys are into computer forensics, into reverse engineering, into malware analysis, and these guys will talk to you days on end about their craft.
Yeah.
And I really like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's like, you strike up a conversation, and next thing you're trying to run to a corner somewhere so you can write some of this down, because they gave you so many different aspects that you didn't even think about, that you're afraid to even walk out the building or do something, go to the next talk, because you might forget some of that valuable information. So you're trying to run someplace, you're trying to write down as many buzzwords and things that you remember, to research when you do get back. And it's true, these are people who are passionate, about this craft, and every opportunity to get to talk about it and show it off or, share some knowledge, they do it. And that's what happened in these little hackathons.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let me ask you this. Pretty much when I met up with you down there, and it was brief. I wish I would have stayed down there a little bit longer, but I didn't. Something didn't sit right with my stomach, so I went back to the room after that night. But Kevin Figueroa was actually, pretty excited about the number of minorities, even though how little were there in attendance. He was excited,
right.
Just at that small number. How do you feel about the lack of black, participation and mainly, not mainly hacker cons, mainly security conferences, and I've attended, quite a few of them throughout my career, and I definitely noticed, like, from something more mainstream like virtualization to something like a hacker con or security con, like the difference in attendance of black participants. How do you feel about that? And what do you think? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, I was going to say, what do you think is the cause of that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, as we were stating, the numbers at the security conference when it comes to, minorities and blacks in particular, have been increasing in the past, 4 years. And that's mainly because, a lot of us are getting into that particular craft, the craft of, information security, information protection, and so forth. But as for the actual hacking aspect, that's an area that we are growing in, but we don't have, the numbers, so to speak. The numbers, that kind of leads to those numbers being reflected at those conferences. So for conferences such as Black Hat and Hackers Halted, which are more security conference, and just by looking at, the talks, how to secure your virtualization, how to, secure wireless, those topics have a direct impact in the white hat community, in the information protection community, where our numbers are growing. But when you're talking about, hacking a near-field communication device or, those particular topics, our numbers are not up to specs at this time, and that's why the numbers are low. But the thing is that as our numbers increase in the white hat community, in the protection community, there's a curiosity that comes about in the black hat world. And then every year you have a number of people who've gotten into the white hat, which the white hat is like the good guys, so to speak, like your information security professionals. They start dabbling to see what's going on in the black hat world, which is the world that the hackers live in. So, the correlation is as we increase the security protection in the white hat realm, a few more are going to trickle into the HackerCon and the black hat world, and those numbers will increase. But it's the white hat numbers that are going to increase the black hat numbers.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And I have noticed overall in technology conferences, period, there is a growing number of minorities that have been attending. And just in the past couple of years, as compared to 4 or 5 years ago, even, and I'm wondering if there is a shift, like as far as the perception of information technology and technology as a whole, that's going on within our culture. That's starting to kind of change things now to where people are looking at it as not just kind of like quote unquote a white man's world, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing about it, and and I'm part of that group, with the STEM programs, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Those programs, geared at many, minority schools that are introducing, kids in high school, kids in middle school to science, technology, engineering, and math. And, that interest, continues into, like their college life and adult life. And those are helping build, more people in those particular areas to increase our overall perspective. Not only that is that, just like anything else, like, Jackie Robinson, the first baseball player and the first, African-American football players and so forth, there are many of us that are currently in the field that are doing positive things, such as Joe McCrary, Marcus J. Carey, and, there's like tons of other names. I can't remember all of them right now, but, those guys are laying some good foundations and, changing perceptions that may have been, unfortunately placed on, many minorities, women and African Americans. All of those barriers are being, more acceptable now because, we do have role models that are showing that, we are, not only capable, but we are you know, in those arenas, you know, doing some very good things, which are helping, you know, open up a lot of doors normally that wasn't available.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why what I like about about your site, securityorg.com, where you are the creator and executive editor. That's securityorg.com. It's a information security and privacy knowledge-based website, and I know. And if you go on the site, it's pretty much, you know, tons of content in regards to information security, general security, security for you know, Windows, mobile security, Mac OS. You've got videos up there. There's, you know, tons of articles. And what I like is that, you know, in your videos, your videos are pretty much portraying, you know, you giving talks, you talking about security, which is a great thing because we need that visibility out there and people to represent us. And, you know, I'm happy to see it on your site, man.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. What security sites do you frequent in order to stay up to date on the latest security threats, the latest vulnerabilities, the latest exploits?
I mean, truthfully, there's like maybe 2 or 3 sites that I may frequent, but the true information is on Twitter. You know, the true information, you know, the up-to-date, the information that hasn't even been published yet, you know, is on Twitter. And I spend a lot of time just reviewing, you know, those Twitter feeds. And, you know, many times they'll have links to, you know, to the particular articles. But, you know, like a site like Dark Reading Room is a site that I like to visit because they have some very interesting information on that.
What was that again?
Dark Reading Room. You know, that's a real good Dark, D-A-R-K.
Dark Reading, okay.
Yeah, Dark Reading Room. They have some real good articles on many different topics. Even the MSNBC, they have a real good technology section. You know, and their writers are pretty good. But Twitter is where I get most of my information because, you know, with Twitter, you know, you have some of the black hat people on Twitter, and, you know, just like when the recent news in the information security market was when the semantic Norton's code was released, you know, for public viewing. And that information was broken on Twitter before it even became mainstream. You know, so Twitter is where you get some, you know, real up-to-date, authentic information. And most of the time you're getting it from the horse itself, you know, the person who just did the breach or the person who just discovered a particular vulnerability, and they'll write an article on their blog. You click it and, you know, you get the authentic information. And from there, after reading it, you're able to, you know, kind of summarize it and you know, and write an article from that particular point of view. So,
gotcha.
You know, Twitter is where it's at for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much real-time news.
Yeah. You know, like I tell a lot of people, you know, Twitter is real-time news, but, you know, it needs to be verified. You know, unlike when CNN put something out, you know, they've sourced it and checked it and double-checked it. So, you know, there's at least a level of validity to it. But with Twitter, you know, somebody will claim, hey, you know, Tango down on this particular website, you know, for whatever reason. And, you know, you go check and you're like, okay, yeah, it is down. And then, you know, from that point on, you know, you could go on and everything. Yeah. But, you know, like that semantic antivirus code release, you know, that's real big right now for people who use that particular product.
Talk a little bit about that. I've seen that on your site. I actually hadn't heard about it until I just seen it on your site. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, back in mid-January, the hacking group Anonymous hacked into the Semantic network and stole code that was related to the PC Anywhere, the Norton Antivirus, and a couple other products. They were trying to extort $50,000 from Semantic so they would not release the code. But negotiations broke down, and as of this past Monday, they went ahead and released the code on multiple sites for people to view.
Why is releasing, and I know this, but why is, for people who don't know, why is releasing the source code such a big deal?
Right. Well, basically, a hacker could look at the source code and, in reviewing the source code, there may be certain vulnerabilities in the product that wasn't visible, but now you're able to look at the source code and you could see where certain memory heaps are and buffer overflows may occur. So it's easier for them to write, malware that would exploit those weaknesses that weren't visible at one time.
Gotcha.
And they could also create certain malware since they know the inner workings of this product. And this malware could bypass the detection features that they have because they know how the detection engine works. And they could say, okay, well, we could write a malware, we could alter it this way, and anyone who has the Semantic product, it'll just go unseen because we know how it works. And third, from a business point of view, is that your competitors are looking at the code also. So, if they aren't able to compete with you because you have, a competitive advantage, now, they have a good portion of your code, to kind of say, hey, we could detect and do the same thing that Semantic can do because, we're using their code. So, that's one of the big things. And they had issued a notice to many of their customers, saying like, hey, hold off in using our PC Anywhere product until we're able to put out a patch, because it does pose a serious threat to those users of those products right now.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, are they just now finding out about these flaws in their code? Because it almost sounds like they might have known about it, and now that it's released, they want to try to hurry up and patch what they can, or did they not know and then people are coming back and saying, hey, they're vulnerable here. You can exploit this piece of code right here and take over one of their computers or take over their, over these computers that are running the software.
Right. I mean, I have to say this much from my experience is that 90% of these vendors know that they're releasing their product with some defects. And they're banking on two things. One, that nobody finds it, or two, they'll be able to create a patch before somebody finds it. Because, taking your product to market seems to be more important, for the bottom line of most of these companies than putting out a secure product. Because putting out a secure product might mean that it has to sit on the shelf for another 6 weeks. And, you're talking about revenue that's being lost at that particular time. So, it's like, let's put it out there, let's hope for the best, and in the meantime, we'll try to patch it. Or if nobody finds it, that's even better. So, and that's part of the thing about having open source and closed code. With open source, you really can't take those types of chances. With private closed code, you can put out a flawed product, and because the code is, secret, it may not be, noticed as early as, an open source situation.
Yeah. Plus, on top of that, when you release open source code, you've got the whole entire community taking a look at your code and providing fixes and patches and things like that, as opposed to something that's closed source.
Right.
So is that like the biggest thing that's happened so far this year?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that's happening is pertaining with, the anonymous group, the anonymous hacking group. I mean, basically they are responsible not only for this, semantic situation, but they've also, caused some havoc at some, police departments that, they weren't happy with how they handled the situation. Just like the SOPA situation that was supposed to be voted on, they were responsible for taking down, I think, the Record Industry Association's website because they weren't happy with them and trying to push SOPA. So I think the biggest thing are not what the end result of the hacks, but it was just the power and the prolific and the way Anonymous is able to cause, the havoc that they've been causing. It's like, they're playing games. It's like, they see a site that they want to take down and they just go after it. And, within days, through either a flaw, through social engineering or some sort of phishing attack, they get it. And, and that's the scary thing for, many businesses. Now, you have the police departments and businesses, I won't even mention their name in a negative way because they know the retaliation that could happen, within days. So I think that's the biggest thing is just to see the power that they have in cyberspace right now.
And nobody has a beat on these guys at all, huh?
No, and if they do, they're not going to say anything because, like that guy from H.B. Gray, who said that he knew about their whole organizational chart, and he was about to expose them, and they plummeted him. They went after his company, stole his email, found out a lot of things that he was doing illegally, and
really?
Destroyed it. Yeah,
I didn't hear about
destroyed him. Yeah. It happened last year around this time. He was going to the RSA conference to make a presentation on the structure of Anonymous, and they went after him. And, and the same thing they're doing with police, like when they were having the Occupy movement, and certain police officers were being a little, being brutal or mishandling, the Occupy protesters. And, those police officers was finding their public information on the web because, of how they handled the situation. So, it's real.
Wow.
It's real. Yeah.
So what other security conferences do you plan on attending this year? What are some of the big name ones out there?
Basically you have in the DC area you have GovSec and FOSSI, which is occurring in April 2nd through the 4th. And I'll actually be presenting a presentation at that conference talking about security assessment. GovSec.
Okay.
Yeah, from April 2nd to April 4th, 2012 in Washington, D.C. And I'll be presenting a paper on the FISMA security assessment process, just kind of covering, security assessment, the actual process and talking about some of the technical aspects like conducting credential scans versus not conducting credential scans, and just kind of showing some demos, of Windows system, one system being credentially scanned and the other one not, same thing with Windows and Mac, and kind of showing the difference in the results and why, the need for credential scans are important when it comes to evaluating the system.
Okay. Now, let's tell us exactly what's a credential scan.
Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. It's that when you conduct a security scan on the system, you could just run a regular scan on the system, or you could run a credential scan where you use a username and password to get access to the registry and, see more things, see more vulnerabilities to patch the system. It's like if you go to a mechanic with your car and you pull the car up to the mechanic and he looks at the car, he's listening to the engine run, and he's like, okay, yeah, the car sounds good. But with a credential scan, it's like if the mechanic was to take one of those computers and plug it into the car and is able to examine, the pistons and, all the other stuff, and he has like a better readout. The car may sound good, but once he plugs it in, he's like, okay, you have some misfirings and, you're running a little too rich. So a lot of organizations are conducting security scans, but they're not doing it using credentials because, many of them feel like, okay, if a hacker was to come to my system, they're not going to have the username and password. So basically what they see from this non-credential scan is what the hacker is going to see, when he comes to the system. And that's a true statement. But one of the things that, we got to understand is that lately the threat vector has been coming in from application weaknesses, such as Real Player, Flash Player, Adobe.
Yeah.
So many times you don't need a username and password to gain access to a system. Just the weaknesses from applications alone will give you that access to the systems. And without credential scans to go in and give you that inside information on all the applications that you have, all the patches that you have, you're still kind of like leaving yourself open, but you just don't know that you're open because you didn't take that extra step to look at, the internal workings of the system. So it's like a difference in philosophy right now, and the shift is shifting over to credentials. But, a lot of system administrators, I guess, needs more convincing. And I hope with this presentation to kind of show them the difference. It's like, okay, this particular scan didn't tell you that you had an Adobe weakness, but when I did credential scans, here's the Adobe weakness that you had. And in looking at the CVE, which stands for Common Vulnerability Exposure, this is a high risk that could give somebody root access or administrator access to your machine. And, just kind of doing that little holding your hand correlation so they could see, the main difference, in access and so forth.
Gotcha. So what tool, or is there a tool, or is there like is this like an open source tool that you use in order to conduct these credential scans, or is it something that, costs thousands of dollars for somebody to obtain?
Yeah, well, you always have two sets. You have the open source and the non-open source. I'm using a commercial tool. I'm using Saint as well as Foundstone to do the many of the scans that I do. So I'm using a commercial tool. I think Nexus, even though it is a commercial tool, it has a free component to it. So you can use Nexus if you want to do security scanning on some of your devices. You also have Retina. Retina's a pretty nice program, and it has like a 1-year free subscription for up to 32 IP addresses. So as long as you stay within 32 IP addresses, you could use the Retina scanning tool. And that's a pretty nice scanning tool. I've tested about maybe 10 scanning tools in the market, and Retina is good as in for Unix systems and Mac systems. It doesn't pick up as much as I would like it to, but when it comes to Windows-based systems, it definitely, does a real good job. So, if you just want to play around with a scanner, and don't want to pay anything, I would suggest Retina as, one that will give you an insight, something to put on your resume for resume candy, to try and, get in the security field.
Gotcha. So what other tools besides the few that you named do you use for conducting like computer forensics or malware analysis?
Yeah, wow. I mean, you have the commercial tools that have everything built into one,
Okay.
but, but with me, I guess, I like using like the little tools like, the hex editors and so forth. But on a normal basis, like to conduct computer forensics, I use Encase. Encase is a real nice product to conduct computer forensics. It gives you the ability to retrieve deleted files, to, collect documents, to collect emails. I also use a product called Access Data when it comes to computer forensics. And those two products are pretty good. They're very reliable. I've used them for years. In fact, I used to be a technical trainer for Access Data a few years back. So I'm very comfortable with that particular application, when it comes to forensics and so forth.
Gotcha.
So, and these are things that, unfortunately are, happening all the time. Like when I met you at ShmooCon, I had just finished taking a website, a WordPress website off-site that had a whole bunch of malware, Java malware, and the malware was the Zeus Trojan. And, this is one of the, meanest Trojans that's out there when it comes to, stealing your information, stealing your banking information and so forth. And, we went into the system and we opened up the file and we saw, the regular stuff that's supposed to be there. And there's a section that's encrypted, and then what we would do, we would copy that encrypted portion, put it in the cipher, and review the code. And from there, we were able to see the instructions, the IP address where the information would be sent to, and and that's how we were able to identify it as being part of the Zeus family code. And and that was using low-end tools. Basically, we just copied the encrypted version, put it in a decipher tool like a hex editor, and just pasted it in there, and we were able to see what we needed to see. And that was all done with free tools. So the thing about computer forensics, there's no one way to do anything. There's so many different tools that are out there, and it's just, between reading, researching, and luck sometimes is how you're able to look for that information that you need.
What's funny about that is we were riding back from D.C. My friend actually does malware analysis. And so we were riding back and he was telling me one of the guys from DC 949, I think it was Virus, was giving him some praise about his hacking kung fu, and he was just kind of saying sometimes, man, he was like I just get lucky, and he was like I don't know if he knows that, and he said sometimes he'll hit me up on Twitter or somewhere, and he'll say, hey, I'm kind of having a problem with this, and he said, I'll tell him, just guessing sometimes, pretty much try looking at this section of memory, and he'll go look at it and like, oh man, yeah, that was it, And he was just like, dude, I totally just got lucky on that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I don't know if you ever watched Law and Order, but, you know, sometimes, you know, during the investigation, you know, the cops just on a hunch or just from experience, you know, like, well, let's just go over here and speak to this guy and, you know, wind up, you know, having something. So, you know, the thing is that, you know, I forgot his name, but, you know, he's experienced and he's done this for a long time. So sometimes you just have that hunch, you know, where, you know, let's just check. And that's just part of experience. You know, that's just part of experience, you know. And, I mean, it feels lucky to you because you just guessed it. It's not something that you went through a deductive process and came to the answer, but because of your experience, because of what you've heard the person say, and he wasn't able to find it in those regular places, something in your mind just said, well, you know, check over here. And that's another form of experience that, you know, we're not comfortable with, but, you know, to others, they're like, wow, you know, this guy's a rock star.
Yeah. So you were talking about you had mentioned certifications just a minute ago, and you have a few industry certifications. You have your CISP, and that's the Certified Information Systems Security Professional certification. Your CCNA, the CISA, and a few others. Tell me, for people, because like on our LinkedIn site, we get a lot of people who come to the LinkedIn group, and then they'll post a message and they'll say, I'm in school right now for information security, and I'm trying to get a job. What is there anything that anybody would suggest, like as far as certifications? What certifications do you think, starting out, somebody who wants to get into information security, what certification would you recommend them starting out with? And then what certifications from there as they progress?
Right. I mean, everyone that pretty much comes and asks me that same question, I usually refer them to two security certifications for starting off. It's either the Security Plus or the CCNA Security, or even just the CCNA in itself. Those two are, good entry-level certifications. It lets me know as a person who's looking to bring you on as a junior security analyst or junior security technician, that you understand the main concepts of what a firewall is, the different kind of firewalls, what intrusion detection, the purpose of having a VLAN, just the basic stuff. Those two certifications will let me know that you know enough for me to not have to spell out every acronym to you and, and talk to you and, and guide you in the way that I want to guide you without, starting from ground zero. From that point on, it depends on where your interest is. If you're into incident response, forensics, I may direct you to go towards a certification in those fields, like something from SANS or something from a particular vendor. If you're into audits, then you might want to go towards, an audit-related certification like the CISA or, again, something from SANS dealing with audit. If you're into, like, compliance. So at that particular time, after you get that baseline certification to, one, make you marketable, and two, to let others know that you are knowledgeable in the field, it's kind of like where your interest is where I would kind of direct you to find a certification within that venue. Because when I first started, I had certifications from IDS to firewalls to VPNs, and as you continue in your career, you become more specialized to incident response and security assessment. And I found that, keeping those certifications weren't as important as keeping certifications in my core competencies. So, that's the thing that I would kind of direct them. And the thing is that these certifications get expensive also, because every year you got to renew them, and, if you have a company that you could expense it, that's a cool thing. But if you have like 5 certifications and the renewal comes up at $200 to $300 a pop, to renew those certifications, it can be a little bit of a hardship to kind of keep them all up.
Yeah, definitely. That's good information to know. What do you think about the this? I think it's the CHF, or is it the? Oh man, what is that? I know there's the CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, and there's another one, but it's for forensics.
Yeah,
I can't remember that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, those are pretty good. Those are pretty good. The CEH has been getting a lot of knocks in the industry.
Really?
Saying that.
I said, really?
Yeah, it's a good certification. I've had the opportunity to sit in on a course, and the information is real good. But I guess, certain things that I heard about it was that, it wasn't challenging enough, to be called an ethical hacker, because many of the real things that I guess, certain people would like to do, the CEH person wouldn't be able to do it. I didn't find that, and there's a gentleman by Joe McCreary who teaches the class, and he does a wonderful job, and not only teaching the class but showing you some examples during the class that after you leave, you can do a lot of things. So I think it depends on the instructor, but the CEH is good, and the forensics version is even better because they partnered with Access Data, so you get to use some real world tools, and they go through pretty much all the concepts, from the preparing stage of how and why you need to handle a hard drive in a certain way. We talk about doing offline forensics as well as live forensics. We talk about the legal aspects of conducting forensics, and they go into it very well. So those certifications are real good as well.
Nice.
So I would definitely recommend those as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
What motivates you as a information security analyst? What motivates you on a day-to-day basis? Because I can tell when people are passionate about their craft, and I can tell that you're passionate. But what brings about that passion?
I think the thing that brings the passion is being able to give somebody a piece of information that they didn't know, and that they're able to go and either do something with it or increase their knowledge base. When I was at A&T, and my professor had asked me to explain a coding procedure to someone who was new in the class. And I told him, I know how to do it, but I didn't know how to explain it. And then he told me, well, if you don't know how to explain it, then you really don't know it. And that has stuck with me. And I remember, going back to my room that day and, taking the time to, learn how to explain the thought process of this particular procedure. And, I came back to him the next day and I told him, okay, I know how to explain it now and I'd like to do it, and he allowed me to do it. And everybody got the idea. And then he eventually made me and a teacher's assistant to him. And ever since then, just being able to articulate and express an idea that somebody will be able to grab and use it for, whatever reason, if it's just to put in their knowledge database or to use it for a particular event, That's where I find my motivation, at the very end, to be able to disseminate the information. And that's why, we have Security Org has a Internet Safety for Kids program, and we just finished doing a presentation today where we went and spoke to a bunch of middle school kids and their parents about Internet safety. And, those are, some real good sessions because, you make the programs for the kids so the kids could be safe, but you look at the parents' face and they get more out of the programs than the kids because the kids are usually the Internet expert, the technology experts in the house. And, and the parents are not to that level. And when we talk with the parents about not only the threats and the dangers of, kids being on the Internet, but some of the countermeasures that they could have in place to monitor and make sure, you see, their heads are like, wow, okay, I didn't know that. And, when they come and ask you, these additional questions about content filtering or, cell phone filtering and so forth, or when we talk about cyberbullying and how, these kids are being cyberbullied and they're coming to their parents or the teachers and asking for help, and, they really don't understand the concept of cyberbullying. And, when we break it down to them and how to find help, those are the things that really kind of like say, okay, this is worth it, because the awareness process is, what empowers people to make, good decisions, not only for them, but for their kids in the long term.
Gotcha. And that's a really good bit of information there because I know that that people say, like, if you want to know something and know it well, teach it to somebody.
Yeah.
That way, if you can explain it to somebody, that means you know it. And the best way to solidify that in your head is to, try to teach it to somebody.
Exactly. You remember it a lot longer, and if they get it, then, you know that you do understand it.
Exactly. One last thing before we jump out of here, I got one last question for you. A lot of times, I preach having a home lab, but I know how difficult, sometimes, having a home lab, I mean, with finances and things like that can be. And one of the obstacles that a lot of people run up against is wanting to get into a certain field or a certain section, say, like information security, and they go to a job interview and they don't have the experience. What can somebody do outside of getting certifications? What is something that they can do in order to try to hone their skills?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the home lab is, one of the key ways to have, that practical experience, And if, due to space or finances that you're not able to have, that home network with 4 computers on the table, what I usually recommend to people is, if your system is good enough, is to use the concept of virtualization. With virtualization, you could mimic or emulate like 5 systems on one computer. So instead of having like 5 computers laying across the table, you could have one computer with 5, virtual systems. And, 2 of them could be Linux, one could be a Windows, XP and so forth. And that gives you the ability to, have one system with Retina on it, and you're scanning 4 of the systems at different patch levels to see what the results are. That gives you the ability to have one system as the main system, but you're administering, 4 of the systems and changing passwords and, trying to hack into one system and get the password files and so forth. So, virtualization is another way to have that, home lab, so to speak. And, you can't beat the fact of having, like, real-world experience. I mean, you could read how to change a password, how to create a user account in a book, but until you actually do it, that's where that confidence level comes in when you can talk about it.
Gotcha. And there's websites out there in different tools as well. A tool like Metasploit, for instance. That you can load up and that you can I think Metasploit does. You can use like a tool like Nessus to actually scan that system. Say, for instance, you have a few virtual machines set up, and you have Nessus running on one computer to scan one of the other virtual machines, and then once you find what the vulnerabilities are, you can go in with Metasploit. Learn how to use Metasploit to exploit those systems.
Exactly. I mean, and all from one computer, you can use Metasploit to, hack Windows XP as well as a Linux-based system, from one computer. But those are the kind of things, that you definitely need to do in conjunction to reading. As I tell my cousin, to go into like these meetup on meetup.com and finding local groups in your area that are meeting up about certain things. And, that's where, if somebody has a job opening and, you're able to, forge a relationship, jobs are being filled with connections, with networks, so they're like, hey, I know this guy, I talk to him all the time. I know he's looking for a job, I'll talk to him. And if you have the right networking, your chances are pretty good through the concept of networking. But definitely your example about using Metasploit on the virtual machine, it'll give you a real-world experience of, scanning the systems, looking for open ports, finding that port, seeing if that port is, exploitable, using another module to exploit a port. And all of that are real-world experience that, gives you that confidence and that, knowledge base to talk about it, and to remember it because you physically have gone through the process of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a myriad of free tools. What's that site? Oh, man, I can't remember what the name of the site was. But there is a site out there that I used to have bookmarked. It actually gives you a list of the latest and greatest open source security tools.
Is it like settools.com or something?
Yeah, I think that's what. It's either that or, let me look it up real quick so I can.
I think it was like free SecTools or I know what you're talking about because I had it up.
SecTools.org.
Yeah, SecTools.org. Yeah,
and if you go there, it'll actually list the top 125 network security tools. So some of in the list right now: Metasploit, Nessus, Wireshark, Aircrack, Snort, which is an intrusion detection and prevention software, K-Enable, Backtrack, and then they have some of the command line tools like Netcat, TCP dump. So
and all of those tools are trades of the craft. I mean, if anything, you should at least try to run them at least once just to see, the process of input and just try to read the output. I mean, all of those, at least a good portion of them should be downloaded and looked at least once. The
good thing about it is a lot of these tools started off as only Linux tools, And now they have ports, Windows ports as well now. So I'm looking at, like Wireshark. I'm looking at like Nessus has a Windows version. Looks like Snort does now. A lot of these tools now have, Windows ports to them that they didn't before. So if you're not, a Linux guru, that shouldn't stop you. There's definitely Windows, open source Windows tools out there for you to use.
Right, and I remember when we were at ShmooCon and there was a discussion about, us, like I guess the security professionals always being, a step or two behind the hackers, and it's because they spend hours, with these tools, and they know how to use it, how to read it, and from being able to read it, they know how to go and implement, a little workaround, and I think we'll always be a step behind. Well, I think we'll always be behind them, but the main goal that I always try to preach as security professionals is to kind of close that gap, and to try to close it with, offensive and, proactive security, as compared to like our defensive and reactive posture that we've been taking for a very long time. And, doing security scanning, aggressive security scanning and being able to identify all the vulnerabilities on your networks, puts you in that proactive, mindset. Is that what findings you have, and if you can't fix the findings, you could either program your intrusion detection to see if anyone tries to exploit that, or, you could create certain firewall rule set, to block that. But it just puts you in that proactive mindset, as compared to a responsive, okay, you see it going through the IDS, let's respond to it, or reactive, like, we've just been hit, what do we do? And, we could close that gap, that just puts us in a better position, and that's the key thing right now when you talk about, security in 2012, as I preach it, is to be more in the offensive and proactive mindset, with honeypots. That's a big thing that I've been kind of promoting since, 2004, honeypots. That puts you in the offensive and proactive aspect as compared to the defensive aspect.
Yeah, definitely. Man, I got to have you back on here, man, because we need to talk about honeypots, and we need to talk more in depth about, IDS and IPSs and, some of the certain devices. I know that my company was actually looking at Arbor Network for their IPS solution. So, we can talk about, IP tables and. We definitely need to. I got a lot of stuff I'm about to write down right now, so we can schedule another.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Definitely.
What were you saying?
Now, so the honeypots. The concept of the honeypots is something that that would definitely be a nice thing to talk about next time. Because it could be used for so many different things, from intelligence to information gathering. It's just the list and the concepts and the architecture. It's just such a valuable tool. It's just such a valuable tool to a network.
Yeah, I'm going to write down a bunch of things, man, that I want to talk about on the next podcast with you, man, and we'll get that scheduled. We'll get you back on here. All right. Well, I want to thank you definitely, man, for checking in with us again and taking time out of your night to have another good conversation about security.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's always good to talk to you. Definitely like your engaging personality. And I was like, I was talking to what's his name from Dual Core.
His real name is David. But in the kind of nerd core hacker scene, he's known as N80, Interrupt 80. But yeah, David.
Right. Yeah, but he was saying that you got some skills on the microphone, man. You know, I was like, you know, we don't even do that. You know, you don't even kind of put that out there.
You know what? I don't. I'm actually. It's funny because a lot of people don't know that I do. You know, close friends, families, people like that. But I actually used to do music like hardcore before, you know, I got more into technology. So that was my thing. And did it for a while, loved it, even, you know, did an album and did what I could, and, you know, I was happy with it and got on with my life and got into more into information security. And it was, and computers was always a passion of mine anyhow. So, you know, I had like that, you know, the dual passion. And what's funny is that he was the same way. He, you know, used to do music, you know, I mean, he still does music, but he was doing just like, you know, the straight hip-hop music and everything like that. But he was, you know, a computer science major. And just one year we were at what is that called? Not a con. You know, kind of, you know, Linux / hacker / you know, one of those cons. And we were just in a room party, and somebody, you know, said, "Oh man, I heard you rap." And from there, you know, they gave him. They had a PA system in the room party, and they gave him a microphone, and he just started freestyling. You know, talking computer stuff. And people were loving it. You know, they were going bonkers over it. And, you know, he passed the mic to me. You know, I did my lines and everything, passed it back. And he pretty much decided then and there, like, in music, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine my two passions, computers and hip-hop, and start making music that way. And he's done, like, I think about 4 albums. He gets booked all around the country at all these computer conferences, some of them not computer conferences. That's who I'm actually going to South by Southwest with to do a show. South by Southwest invited him down there to do a show. He was there last year. And so the arrangement is that, you know, and I'm on his first album, 01, and I'm on his latest album, which is called Next Level. And the track that I'm on the first album is called Cypherpunks. And then the track on the latest album is called Here to Help. And so pretty much how that works out is he'll say, you know, hey, I'm doing a show, and he usually takes me along, all expenses paid, don't have to come out of pocket for anything, and I just travel along and I do the shows with them. Same thing for like South by Southwest. You know, he's flying me out there, putting me up in a hotel, and getting me a ticket to South by Southwest, and we're going to do the show. And I've been doing this with him.
Man, that was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing this with him for like, you know, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's beautiful. He spoke very highly of you too, you know, and that's when I was like, okay, you know. I was like, you would have known.
He always counts my. It's funny because like at the beginning of the shows, he'll always say, you know, here's the best rapper in Cincinnati. You know, introduce me. I'm like, oh man, I don't have anywhere to go but down from here, man. You just talked me up way too much. But yeah, he's a good dude, man, and he actually is the guy. I've known him for years, probably 10 to 12 years or something like that. And he's actually one of the guys that turned me onto Linux. He helped me install my first Linux machine, man. So back in the day, you know, it was funny because we kind of traded crafts. You know, he really loved, you know, MCing hip hop and everything like that, and I really loved computers. But he's super sharp, super sharp when it comes to programming, when it comes to hacking, all that stuff. He's sharp. And so, like, you know, he was giving me knowledge on that, and I was giving him knowledge about, you know, hip-hop and things like that. We kind of just meshed that way, and, yeah, so.
Yeah, that's Bruce. That's great. I like that. I like that collaboration type stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, South by Southwest, man, I can't wait for that. Should be fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, man, thanks again for hanging out with us, man. Go ahead and real quick give out your Twitter handle, give out the URL for your site, and so the people who are listening can check it out.
Sure. My personal Twitter is @KellepC. That's KELLEPC. That's, again, KELLEPC. For Security Orb, it's @Security Orb. That's Security ORB as in boy, Security Orb, ORB. And the website is securityorb.com. You know, if you want to, you know what's going on in conferences and security, you know, Security Orb is, the best thing to follow. I mean, you could follow Kellep C also, but, you know, if you're a hater of, like, the New York Giants and the New York Knicks, you know, I'm gonna talk them up. So, you know, I'm real happy with the Super Bowl, and I'm hoping, you know, the Knicks.
I meant to congratulate you.
Yeah.
Congratulate you at the top of the show, man, on beating my team. I've been a long time New England Patriots fan, man, and that yeah.
I was able to have a conversation if I knew that in the beginning.
I'm glad I'm with it.
Yeah. You know, now I'm focusing my thoughts to the Knicks right now. Hopefully with Lynn and with the other guys, you know, we'll be making a run during playoff time.
Well, you know they'll have to go up against my Heat because I'm a Heat fan.
Oh, God,
I'm glad I saved that to the end too.
Yeah. You know, but yeah, it was nice, and I definitely look forward to, you know, just staying in touch, and for the next time, you know, I get my invitation to come back, you know.
Okay, yeah, definitely, man. Appreciate it. All right, take care. All right.
Blacks in technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.